Good Monday morning! I am MPJ and you are watching Fun Function. Oh, I have to fix the microphone. There we go. I am so hungover today. Oh. I guess it kind of makes me seem like an alcoholic because there are so many episodes now where I'm hungover. I know I say good Monday morning at the beginning of the episodes, but I actually record these on Sundays in order to release them on Monday mornings. And sometimes there are celebrations on Saturdays that I want to attend. And that results in episodes like these, where I want to make an episode, but Let me do this with my hair so that it accurately reflects my inner state. That's better. So today the title of this video is Self-Discipline is a Fraud. Perhaps a less clickbaity title would be Self-Control Sucks. For me, self-control just doesn't work. What does work for me is Habitual Timeboxing. So today I want to talk about habitual timeboxing as an alternative to self-control. There is a lot of people in my midst who are impressed that I make these videos every single week. And many say like, wow, you have amazing self-discipline to do that every week. I have the worst self-discipline. I have no self-control. For instance, I'm trying to cut down on coffee because I drink too much coffee, and I just go to work and this is the only cup I'm going to have today. And then I just find myself drinking my 6th cup and just, I should probably not drink more coffee. And then I just observe myself going to the coffee machine and getting another cup of coffee, and I just can't help myself. I just do it. I am the absolute worst at telling myself what to do. It seems like if I tell myself what to do, I have an even less chance of doing it than if I didn't tell myself what to do. And this is something that I've struggled with all my life, really. I didn't do well in school. I'm one of those people who always procrastinates doing taxes. And historically, before Fun Function, I also had a very hard time of consistently, creatively producing stuff. I would start a lot of stuff, but I wouldn't end up actually producing it consistently enough so that I could actually release stuff to the world. But then something happened in my life. I'm going to tell you a story about something called 8 a.m. Sharp. So 8 a.m. Sharp was a movie production. Maybe you don't know this about me, but I don't come originally from a programming background. I have a background in theater, movie production and stuff like that. And I was hanging around in this crowd who we had been producing movies as a team for a long time. And people were discovering that, hey, movie production, this is fun, this is what I want to do. So people went to school, got better at it, got proper gear, and over time, people got a lot better at it, more professional. And we discovered that as we became more professional, more people around me at least, discovered that we were doing less things, not more. To a large degree, this was simply because we now understood how hard things were to do. When you're starting out with something, you have no idea how long things are gonna take. So you're like, hey, let's make this movie. How long is it gonna take? Well, 1 week, at tops 3. And the fucking thing ends up taking like 4 months. And at the end of the project, you're like, why did we get into this? But since you're in the project and you've committed to doing it, you end up finishing it and getting it out the door. And after you've done this mistake for a couple of times, you get wiser and you start getting a better realistic feel for how long things take. But that also means that you are less likely to get into them because you know how hard they are going to be. So we just found ourselves in this situation where we were just not doing a whole lot, even though we were now more capable than ever. Thus was born the 8 a.m. Sharp project. 8 a.m. Sharp was not a project per se, it was a process where we gathered at 8 a.m. sharp every other Saturday morning. We were not allowed to have any type of script or even an idea, but at the end of that day, we were supposed to have a complete and finished movie uploaded on YouTube. And this was just amazing. We produced a lot of movies during that period, and anyone was allowed to show up. It was not just our team, so sometimes we only had 2 people who didn't know anything about movie production and a cell phone camera, and some Saturdays we had a team of 14 people, a Irish director, 2 professional grade cameras, which was $20,000 a pop. And we split into 2 teams and had a pretty high production thing. It was just amazing because it was this process that just glorified getting things out. Not every individual video turned out great, but considering the whole process and the fact that they were produced in a fucking day, I think some of them turned out to be pretty decent. And it was 8 a.m. sharp that got me thinking in these lines, like the lines of this habitual timeboxing. Because I found that I was an order of magnitude more productive with this method rather than everything else I've tried in my life. And since then I've read a lot about self-control and how it works. And if you look at research, it indicates that self-control behaves sort of like a muscle. It's definitely a muscle in the sense that it can be trained and you can become better at it, but it also is a muscle in the sense that when you use it, it gets tired and you cannot use it indefinitely during a day. I've put a link in the episode description about this. You can repeat this in experiments where people that had to resist resist eating a cookie compared to a group that didn't actually perform worse at intellectual tasks afterwards. Using self-control seems to somehow deplete something in you. But when we did 8 a.m. sharp, getting up in the morning, it didn't, for some reason, feel in the same way that when you're depriving yourself from getting a pizza or a cookie, you know? Well, it did at first, but once we got into it, it felt like something that we just, had to do. It's Saturday, we go and make a movie. The brain somehow started accepting that this is just how it works. It turns out that psychologically, habits are extremely powerful things. There's a book by Charles Duhigg that is The Power of Habit. I've linked to that in the episode description. It's just an amazing book. It turns out that habits, they live in a completely separate part of the brain from memory and all our other cognitive functions. There's actually people who have, due to accidents, lost part of their brain, the part of their brain that contains short-term memory. So these people can't form new memories. Just like the guy in the movie Memento. So they can't form new memories, but here's the funky part, they can form new habits. So they ran an experiment where a person were supposed to pick, there were cards and they were supposed to pick which one had a cat behind it. They did this experiment hundreds of times over, but since they didn't have any short-term memory, they could not know. So the first few times they just failed, they just basically guessed. But over time, they started picking the right one. Somehow the brain started connecting this, getting the right card with the reward that comes from the success, and just learned habitually to pick the right card. And it turns out that habits can be pretty damn complicated. You can, for instance, these people could just habitually get into a very complicated route around their neighborhood and walk that completely on their own, but they really couldn't if they were asked to draw that route or remember even that they have ever taken that route, they were not able to do it. And in that same vein, like, I can find myself just almost unconsciously walking all the way over to the coffee machine, performing all the steps of making coffee, and then just suddenly finding myself with a coffee in hand, even though I had committed that day to not making coffee. Habits have ludicrous power over you. It's very bad in the case of the coffee case, but if you manage to use these habits for good, it's really good. Wow, I'm so insightful. So how does a habit work? A habit has 3 components. The first one is a cue. So a cue can be very different. Might be tied to time. For instance, I always get a cup of coffee when I arrive in the office. Might also be a feeling. I tend to get a cup of coffee when I'm bored, for instance. Or it might be that you brush your teeth before you go to bed. The point is that the cue is something, it's a trigger. It's something that happens inside you or outside you. It's something that triggers the habit, starts it off. In the case of the fun function production, it's simply that it's Sunday. The second component of a habit is a routine. This is the thing that you actually do, like, brushing your teeth or producing an episode of fun function or drinking a cup of coffee. Something triggers you to do a routine, and that leads to a reward. This is actually the most tricky thing to understand about habits in my experience. With coffee, it's often hard to identify what I get out of it. I think it's different from time to time. Sometimes it's a bitter taste that I like. Sometimes when I have a boring task to do, I just go get a cup of coffee, and the reward is that I escape the boredom of the task. In the fun function case, it's probably just the satisfaction of uploading a completed episode, or perhaps the likes and comments from you people that I get. I'm not completely sure. It varies a lot from person to person and situation to situation, but this is basically the gist of what a habit is. It's a trigger that causes you to do a routine which gives you a reward of some kind. So habitual timeboxing, it's basically a habit that is intentionally designed around a time box. On Friday evenings, I write on my book. This is very different from my old mentality, which was more like, I'm going to complete writing a book, or like my next task on this list is to write 1 chapter. The problem with that is that there is no trigger. Like this, I cannot build like this flywheel kind of thing from that. It cannot become a habit. But if you make your work like a routine that you do at a certain time, or when a certain thing happens, it can become a habit, and that is so much more powerful than a goal. So with fun function, it just doesn't matter if I'm hungover or if I'm tired or even if I'm sick. I just do it because it's such a powerful habit. It's not always a super smart programming video, sometimes it's episodes like this, but I always do one. And if you do something, you almost always learn something, which means that you are improving. That's my tired, hungover thought for the day. Self-control sucks for me at least, and I found that habitual timeboxing is a much better alternative to that. It's basically the only way I get things done. And it's because of this, like how a habit is structured. There's a cue that triggers the habit, which makes you do some kind of task in a routine, something that you do, which leads to a reward of some kind, and that is just very strong in the human psyche. You have just watched an episode of Fun Function. I release these every Monday morning, 0800 GMT time, but you will forget that In order to prevent that, you can turn on notifications in the YouTube app by pressing the little bell next to the subscribe button. I do more videos like these in these musings. You can check out a playlist of them there, or you can check out this episode which Google has selected for you. I am MPJ. Until next Monday morning, stay curious.